Hello, I am Jamey from Stonemeyer Games, and I am joined today by a special guest, another Geekway to the West 2024 attendee, my friend Jeff here. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm still kind of riding that Geekway high today, and so everything's going well.
So yeah, we just attended. We have a 4-day game convention here in St. Louis that we're very lucky to have here because it's essentially just 4 days of playing games with friends, strangers, family, whoever you want to play games with over 4 days. So for me, it's been a pretty intense 4 days, in a good way, of learning a lot of games, of playing a lot of games, of talking to a lot of amazing people. Was that similar to your experience, Jeff?
Yeah, it grows every year for me,
Mhm.
and I've probably played with the most different people ever at a Geekway this year. It was great to kind of meeting a lot of different people, and then also having some time with um, my special group too, and so it was good to have that mix all the way through.
That's nice. And it was great to play a game with you in person. Jeff and I usually play games every other week on Board Game Arena, so I don't think I've ever, maybe never gotten to play a game with you in person, unless it maybe a Geekway a
We
few
we
years ago.
did last
Okay.
year.
Was it last year? Oh, okay.
I think we did Libertalia together
That's
towards the
right.
very end of
That's right.
Geekway. So,
Nice.
but yeah, it's always great, and we and connecting with the person I never met before that joined us for that last game too.
Oh yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
that's all part of the Geekway experience.
Absolutely. And I'm glad we're talking about it. This is the framework for it because today we're going to talk about our top 5 games that each of us played that were new to us at Geekway. Not necessarily brand new games, but most of them are on the newer side. But for me, I will have some games that I played that are not in that top 5 because we played way more games than 5 games. That is not, I played every game I played, I enjoyed, whether it was the mechanisms, the theme, or just the experience of playing with people who were excited to play and learn or teach that game.
Mhm.
So I want to start off with that caveat that even if a game didn't make my top 5, doesn't mean that I didn't have a great time playing it.
Yeah, you're exactly right on that. It's the whole experience, and maybe the game wasn't the greatest. It's going to get a 9 or a 10, but it's all about the opportunity to try a whole bunch of different things. And as you'll see from my list, there's a couple games where I normally wouldn't play those games, but
Right.
I had a great time with them.
Well, with that in mind, Jeff and I both have lists of games that are either honorable mentions or games that we had previously played, and maybe we taught them. Maybe we just, had didn't want to learn a game at that moment, and we played something else that we already knew. So, Jeff, what is your list, real quick, of those games that you had already played or that were honorable mentions?
The games I had previously taught that I played that I taught at Geekway were Vale of Eternity, First in Flight, Planet Unknown, and Las Vegas Royale, the game that I
Mhm.
taught you.
Yeah.
And then the other games that were part of the grouping were the Star Wars deck building game,
Mhm.
uh, Heat, Four Corners, uh, Ecosystem Savanna, Fliptown, Daybreak, Paleovet, and Dice Town.
Nice. Oh, Dice Town. Yeah, that's one that I've been meaning to play. I should have played that at Geekway. Um, well, yeah, and my list of these games, again, a mix of honorable mentions and games that I previously played, were Sentient, Wyrmspan. I played disc golf on Saturday morning. I played Trio, Vale of Eternity, Castles and Back in Ludwig, the Colossal version. It was my first time playing the Colossal version. Jeff, you walked by and saw that when we were playing that.
Yeah, that would look that looked very fun.
It was pretty cool. Yeah. I'd played the game many times before, though. Waffle Time, Imperial Miners, Thunder Road Vendetta, and Too Many Bones. Really had a great time playing all of those games.
Mhm.
But I listed my top 5 as the games that I think I'm most likely to pursue playing again in the future. And so why don't we talk about those? Jeff, what is your number 5 pick here?
Number 5 for me was Ancient Knowledge. I grew up loving like Sid Meier's Civ 2. That was the way I wasted a lot of time back in high school and college. That one more turn type thing. So I
Mhm.
love, and this wasn't a strict Civ game as much as it was that theme, but I really enjoyed the card play of the monuments declining over time, and that kind of push and pull of uh, this card is going to be worth a lot of points, but it's probably going to have those negative points attached to it too, as the monuments fall off and that knowledge escapes from humanity. So, and again, this was a special one because it was just a duo game I play with my son, and this is only the second
Nice.
time my son has joined me, and so it's always kind of special when you just get that separate time amongst all 3,000 other people. Just have a little time with someone that's the most important to you.
That's great. This is one that I have not played. You have 2 games in your list that I have not played, and so I need to check this one out. It looks great on the table, at least here in the photo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. So that's Ancient Knowledge as Jeff's number 5. My number 5 pick. It was really close between 2 games, but I think this one took the edge for me, and that was a game that I got to play with Jeff. This is the game that Jeff taught me. He was very excited to share this game with me. This is Las Vegas Royale. I love push your luck games. I love games that balance a little bit of dice with other mechanisms. And in this game, you're rolling all of your dice into this nice dice tower, or dice dice tray that's in the middle of the table. And then you are selecting one number, all dice of one number, and putting them on one of the 6 spots. And you can see this isn't the photo that I took, but this is similar to how Jeff set it up, where you have 3 different mini games associated with numbers 1, 2, and 3. And then you have 4, 5, and 6. And all of them have money associated with it. So there's an area control element at the end of the round. But I also really like these mini games that you have to play on the lower numbers. But I really like this core hook where you are only selecting dice of one number. You mentioned that it's similar to MLEM, a game that we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
But I like that mechanism. It's a nice push your luck mechanism to roll the dice and then have the choice of what numbers. And so it's at times you might just want to slow play it a little bit and put one dice someplace so that you can have more agency later in the round for area control after other players have placed their dice. Or you might want to go all in. Maybe you roll like 4 2s. And so you might put all those 2s, you have to put them on the 2 slot and really hold down that spot or get a powerful one-time benefit based on the mini game there and not have to worry about other players. So I really, really like that decision in this game and had a lot of fun playing it.
I'm really glad to hear that you enjoyed it. It was one that we picked up last year from the main library, and we played it 3 or 4 times in a row because we just had so much fun with it. So it's good to hear you had a good time.
I really did. And it appears to offer a lot of variability based on the different mini games. All these tiles are double-sided, and there are way more than just 3 of these tiles in the game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's Las Vegas Royale. Probably my surprise. I know, Jeff, you had talked about it, but I was pleasantly surprised by it and had a great time with it as my number 5.
Great.
As number 4, what's your number 4 pick?
My number 4 is The Great Split. And this was a game that our BGA game group played one week while I was not there, so I definitely wanted the chance to pick it up, and wow, I've really had a great time with this. It's one of my favorite mechanisms of the I split you choose, and you're actually getting that doubled because you're going to pass half the cards, or you pass your hand to the left, kind of split it there with that kind of dark colored card in the middle, and then you're going to receive a hand from the person on your right, and they will have split the cards as well. And you have to choose on your side which ones those that you want, and then you're going to get back half of the cards. And the your player board has so many opportunities of where you're going to move up the tracks, and what sort of combinations you're going to get. If you move the gold, then you may be able to move a couple of the other tracks as well. And I love the double-sided board, or the double, or whatever that's called, the word
dual layered board. Yeah.
Dual layered board. Yeah. So because as you can see, that's a lot of cubes there. And so it's so easy to move it along and keep everything exactly where it needs to be. So yeah, it was, because you always want that feeling of giving just enough to the other person and keeping an eye on their board of like, okay, they're going to really want this, and then tuck the things that you need on the other side, and hopefully they'll take it, and then you'll get the stuff back that you want.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't played this in person. I played it, like you said, on Board Game Arena, and I love how you have to consider at all times what you want, but also what the player you're passing to might want as well. And as an added benefit, I really like that the divider card right here, that not only does it serve as a way to divide the 2 cards, but it also acts as a wild, so that maybe you just weren't dealt any of the cards you weren't that you wanted, or you weren't past those cards. This card is anything you want. And I thought that was a really clever addition.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Great pick at number 4, The Great Split. My number 4, what did I pick for number 4? Oh, yeah, The Witcher Old World. This was probably the most epic game, other than the colossal Madkin Ludwig, but The Witcher 3 is probably the most epic game that I played at the convention. It was about a 3.5 hour game, including the teach. And we were Witchers going on adventures and fighting monsters, fighting each other, playing little dice mini games. Everything, or most everything in the game, relates back to this deck of cards that you have. This deck that's used for combating, fighting monsters, but also fighting other Witchers. And I really like the combat mechanism. It was a game where it didn't feel bad to fight other players because you were never knocking them down. In fact, if you defeated another Witcher, they could get right back up and be a little bit better afterward. They would like learn from the fight and add another card to their deck. And just the whole combat mechanism, I won't go into it in detail, but the hook of it are these little tabs right here. So if I can only play technically one card per turn in combat. But if I play this card here, this yellow card, because it has a purple tab dealing a damage here, if I play a purple card, this tab allows me to play a purple card in addition to this card. And that purple card might have like a red tag. And if that does, then I can also play a red card on top of it. And when you do that, you not only are extending the cards, I'm getting the purple card benefit, but also getting the icon on the tab itself. So that felt really good to have these combos during combat. Have you played this one, Jeff?
No, I haven't. And honestly, the IP, I'm assuming the Witcher series and the book series as well. Not one I'm very familiar with as well. But definitely have some people around me who really love that series, and so maybe something I will have to check out for their behalf.
Yeah, I can see that. I know a little bit about the series. I've watched a few of the seasons of the TV show, but I'm not deeply immersed in it. But I still had a great time playing the game. And there were some adventure cards that we draw at times, and the writing on them was a lot of fun to read through these little story vignettes. So yeah, that is The Witcher Old World as my number 4 pick. What about your number 3?
All right. Well, as I mentioned to you yesterday, on my top 3, there's 2 games that have the primary mechanism is one that I don't typically go towards. And the first one here is Thunder Road Vendetta. And I'm not a big fan of player elimination. And games like King of Tokyo, they're just, I don't like that feeling of someone sitting around while everyone else is playing. But this one is just chaos, and we had a great time. I played this 2 or 3 times at Geekway. I think it was the first game that we played, and it's one of those story games where you remember every single play that you're going to have of this game. The first time I was playing with someone that didn't want to try to avoid all the damage and try to run into the people. And by the end of it, that player, they were ramming and sending out their chopper and all those things. And the second game, we had a player, my son, who was so far ahead, and to the point where he was going to run off the far track and practically get rid of like 6 cars that would have fallen off the edge when the last track disappeared. But so it was a small car. The chopper is the most difficult to hit of all the cars but got the random shot off and did I think it was the blast off damage where it flew off the board.
Oh yeah.
And then everyone else was able to catch up on that point. But even with the player elimination in this game, that's an end game trigger too. When one person doesn't have any cars left. So it's not that long period of kind of sitting around. And even when you are limited, you get that sense that you're cheering for, the underdog to come back but it is just kind of, like I said, chaos, and it is a lot of fun.
I'm so glad you mentioned this game. This was a game that I played that I really enjoyed. Not quite on my top 5, but I think conventions provide the opportunities to play a game like this. Like you said, it has mechanisms that you normally don't gravitate towards. You may not have played it if it wasn't at a convention, but I think conventions give you that chance to play games that are a little bit outside of your comfort zone. I definitely experienced that. And I really like what you said about how players maybe early on in the game might be hesitant about going after each other. Some players might go immediately start shooting at each other. But what we found in our games is that there's a decent chance when you go after someone else that, like, if you crash into someone else, you actually put your car on top of theirs, that a bad thing might happen to your car, not necessarily their car. So you were just signing up for a fun moment when that happens, not necessarily a moment where you might hurt the other player.
Yes.
Yeah. Really clever game, I think,
Yeah.
Thunder Road Vendetta. I can see why people are having a lot of fun with it.
Yes, for sure.
That's Jeff's number 3. My number 3, I believe this is going to be almost exactly the opposite. Yeah, this is not even close to Thunder Road Vendetta. This is Foundations of Rome. Foundations of Rome is a very controlled game. There's some decent player interaction in it, but you're not hurting other players in this game where you are building Rome together. So this is not a player mat here. This is the entire board that you're sharing with the other players. It has a little bit of a bingo aspect to it where you are selecting a card and claiming that spot on the board. So a card might say E8. There's one card in the deck that says E8. And when I gain that card, when I buy that card, so it isn't completely random, but I have to actually buy it, I put a little token on E8 and claim it as my own. And slowly over time, we build this city. We're gaining money benefits. We're gaining point benefits. And we're gaining point benefits based on our population in the city. But the thing that really elevated this game for me is how flexible it is, especially given the amount of interaction that happens on this shared board. And by flexible, I mean that if I might claim E8, and then on a future turn, very quick, simple turns, on a future turn, I might place a building that only occupies one space here. And I'll get a benefit from having that building there. But later on, I can build over that building. If I also claim D8 or F8, I can build over that building and place a bigger building there. And I really like that. I think in a lot of games, they would have locked you in. Okay, you build this building, that is the building that's there. But I really like the flexibility that this game offered as the game evolved. Is this one that you've played, Jeff?
No, again, this is that was on my list of, one to play, just didn't get around to it. I know it's been out for, a little while at this point, but it's, you look at the table presence there, you look at the puzzly part of that, but also the opportunity for those individual player boards too. So on my list for sure.
I also think I'll throw this in there that this game I think is a little bit notorious for having really beautiful components for such simple gameplay, which I don't think is a bad thing, but it does cost a lot of money. I have heard the company is releasing a version of it with tiles with a different setting. I think it's like New York or classic 1920s settings. So there is a version coming. If this interests you and you don't want to spend $200, there is a version coming for you as well. Yeah. That's my number 3, Foundations of Rome. What's your number 2?
Number 2 is Wandering Towers. And this was one where I saw someone playing it earlier on and then was like, you know what? I think I want to get in on the game of this. And that was one where it definitely matched my expectations. And it has that little bit of memory component of trying to, hey, someone covered up something has 4 of our meeples in it, and where did that go? And we just played the kind of the starter version of our first game of which with the 2 basic spells. So I don't think I got the full picture of it, but it's definitely one that has that feeling that you just want to keep on playing it over and over again to try to kind of maximize the movement of the different towers. And it very much we just talked about Foundations Rome table presence too. Is this is one too that just looks great playing, where as you're moving the towers around and, like I said, uncovering stuff and like, hey, there's 3 people under there that we completely forgot about. And even the strategy of the cards as well, of how you want to use your potions because you only get a couple to use there, 5 or 6 depending on the player count. And when is going to be the best time to use those to get your meeples in the tower and seeing if you can even kind of plan ahead a few steps before, of course, the other player is going to completely ruin that that plan in the next step too. But yeah, this is one we sat down, we started playing it, and immediately just fell in love with it.
So I need to look more into this game and learn more about it. But is there any sort of comparable game where you could say if you like this game or this style of game, you would also like Wandering Towers?
I'm not sure on that one.
So it's pretty unique.
I would say so. Like I was almost going to say like a game I have up there. That's not a hat. Where
Uh-huh.
where you're everybody knows what all the things are and where the things should be, and then when you flip over the baseball and it's a wagon, it's like
Uh-huh.
really. And it's that same kind of feeling, with the towers when you're uncovering one and you're expecting there to be your meeple underneath there,
Right.
and it's somebody else's or it's empty, and you're like, where did that go? Uh, so maybe in that sense, that there is a little bit of a similarity, there
Uh-huh.
too.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to try this one. I saw it on a lot of tables here. I think Capstone had a booth at Geekway, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. So that is number 2 is Wandering Towers for Jeff. My number 2 is a game that a lot of people have been talking about the last few months. This is the game Harmonies. It's an abstract game in the vein of Cascadia. A lot of people I've heard of compared to it, and it's actually very similar, I found, to another game that I played and was almost my number 5 pick. That is Waffle Time. I played Waffle Time as well. Both Waffle Time and Harmonies have this aspect where you are trying to accomplish multiple types of goals, and you can, even when you're trying to accomplish the same goal, there's overlap uh, between getting one of that goal and getting multiples of that goal. For example, if you have a card, an animal card that wants you to have a small tree and 2 rivers next to it, and you accomplish that goal, you take 1 token off that animal card and you put it on the small tree. But then later on, I have another small tree here. I placed another river token here. Even though I've already used this river token, it is still, I'm able to combo off of that token that I've already used and that I already have to create that same configuration using only 3 more tokens. So being able to branch off of stuff you've already placed, it feels really, really good in this game. It's a beautiful game. It was very easy to learn and play, and I thought the art looked great on the table. So yeah, I really had a delightful time playing Harmonies.
Yeah, it's not one I've heard of it, but not one I've had to the table yet. And like you said, the art looks wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you to Andrea for teaching this. Yeah, that's my number 2 pick, Harmonies at Geekway to the West. Now we're to our number ones. I want to hear all about your number 1 pick here.
And my other mechanism that I usually don't gravitate towards is press your luck.
Mhm.
I can be playing a game of quacks and I could have 100 potions in there and I'll still pull that 3 out. And but this was MLEM, the space agency, and wow, this was definitely the most played game for me at Geekway. 3 or 4 times, I think we, either checked it out or someone else, sat down at the table playing it too. But you have your little cat astronauts. I don't know if they're officially called castronauts or not, but and you have a dice pool very much the same way as we talked about with Las Vegas Royale. Is that you roll the dice and you pair up out different groups, and you have to move that many spaces, and if each space there, as you can see, has a certain type of die that it's looking for. If you
Mhm.
don't hit any of those die, the shuttle blows up, and everyone at least gets their cats back. So there's no um, permanent damage to your cats, which is always good.
Right.
But in the choice of which of the cats, because they all have a different power to them to choose. And uh, again, as I think I mentioned before too, is that it's a story game, of
Mhm.
you getting those great roles that you need. And uh, the first time I played it, I sat down and someone said, well, we've never gotten out to the deep space yet. And then the first time that I had the roles, um, I used the cat that has the extra 1 die on it,
Mhm. Mhm.
and just fortunately enough, I kept landing on spaces that had that 1 die. So I always had a kind of a safety net of knowing, okay, even if I don't hit any of the things I need, I can at least play this one. And we got all the way up to deep space, and it was like the whole table cheered because it was like the first time they'd seen this happen. But yeah, this is um, one that most likely will be added to my collection at some point soon.
I'm so glad you had fun with it. I played it a lot recently at the Gamers Ranch, and we had a blast with it. And it's one of these games where it is a competitive game. Like there is a winner to the game, but along the way, there's a lot of shared victories because you're boarding the vessel. If Jeff is the captain, he has control over how far we go, but I have control over what cat I put on the ship and how long I stay on that ship. And oftentimes, my presence on the ship might have an impact on Jeff's ability to go further. So there is a little bit of interaction there as well. And there's those feel good moments. Like I'm sure anyone who was still on that ship when you made it to deep space, they celebrated with you. They were really happy to go that far with you.
Definitely, yeah. And the one person who had jumped off early was, they felt that disappointment because they weren't part of that crew.
Exactly. Yeah, this is a wonderful game, MLEM. And the components you see here, it looks like this is a deluxe version. It isn't. This is just the standard version of the game. It comes with this wonderful long mat that you roll out at the beginning of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautiful on the table and super fun.
So that's MLEM as Jeff's number one pick. This might have been my number one pick if it had been a new play to me at Geekway. But my number one pick is something else, and that is the White Castle. Another game with dice, but not really a push your luck game with dice. This is Jeff. Have you played this one?
No, but once again, it was on that list, and that's the thing is you make these prep lists of all these games you want to play, and you only got 4 days.
This was at the top of my list. I really wanted to play this game, and thankfully had Michelle, still my ambassador, was willing to teach it, along with Andrea, who also knew the game, and I got to play it with Megan as well. The four of us played a game and just had a great time. It's a really nice, thinky Euro game with lots of great decisions from the dice, and really the core mechanism of how the dice are used, I thought was really clever. In that, at the beginning of each round, you roll. In a 4-player game, at least, you're rolling all the dice. Maybe you're rolling fewer dice for fewer players, but we were rolling all the dice. There's red, white, and red dice, and they go on these little bridges. So you roll them and you number them on the bridges from least to greatest. So say I have 5 white dice that I've rolled, I might go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if that's how they paired up, how they rolled. And then on your turn, you're selecting 1 dice from either end of a bridge. So you're either taking a really high die, or you're taking a low die. And depending on the dice that you roll, at times you might be taking the low die, but it might actually be a pretty high number based on what dice are there. The reasons you're doing that selection is that the high dice, when you place them, and you can place dice anywhere, but if you place a high die and it's higher than the number that's printed on the board, you can see some on your player mat, you have 6s, but there are lower numbers printed on the board. If you place a number that's higher than that printed number, you gain coins equal to the difference. If you place a number that's lower, though, you have to pay coins equal to the difference. So there's a reason to have big dice, high number dice. At the same time, though, there's a great reason to take the lower number dice. So if I have a 1 value white die on the left side of the bridge, I might take that 1, even though I have to pay some coins to place it somewhere, because when I gain that, I get to activate my lantern benefit. The lantern benefit are all cards. You can see at the bottom of the screen here, it's all cards that are lined up here on my player mat. At the beginning of the game, that's only 1 little icon that you'll gain. But throughout the game, you'll probably place a number of cards there. By the end of my game, I think I had 7 or 8 cards there. So if I selected that low number die and activated my lantern benefit, I would gain a ton of different things all in a row. It felt really, really good. So overall, my favorite mechanism here is the dice parity and how they're used. I thought that was really, really clever. And I would highly recommend it if you get the chance to play it.
It will get played at some point for sure.
Yeah, so that's the White Castle as my number 1 and MLEM as Jeff's number 1. Jeff, this was great. I love hearing your thoughts about Geekway and the games that you played. Thanks for taking the time to talk about it today.
You're very welcome. And if I can just at the end say that, just a big thank you to, Tracy and all the geek guides and all the people who put Geekway together. I got an opportunity to volunteer in the Play to Win room this year, and, time went so fast because it's always in and out, people checking in and out. But convention of 3,000 people, wouldn't be able to be done without people that are willing to work behind the scenes. So big thank you out to all of them.
Thank you for volunteering. Yeah, thank you to everyone who helped out to host the convention and to make it run so smoothly. It was they I think do an incredible job at making it warm and welcoming and pretty seamless from start to finish. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, if anyone else watching this played something at a convention recently, not necessarily Geekway, but if you played something at a convention recently and want to mention a game that surprised you or delighted you or that you were expecting high things from and those expectations were met, let us know in the comments below. Or if you wanted to comment on any of the games that we talked about in our top 5s. feel free to do so. Jeff, thanks so much for your time. I look forward to the next time we get to play games together. Take
Same
care.
here. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
You too.